The Dodgers just made their first real move in free agency, and honestly, the way it played out tells you everything you need to know about their strategy heading into this offseason. Raisel Iglesias got offered a contract by Los Angeles, and according to Francis Romero, that offer was worth around $16 million. But here's the kicker. He turned it down and went back to Atlanta instead. Now, before everyone starts panicking about the Dodgers getting rejected, let's talk about what this actually means. The Blue Jays also offered Iglesias around that same $16 million figure, so it's not like the Dodgers were the only ones trying to land him. The Braves clearly wanted their guy back, and sometimes a player just wants to stay where they're comfortable. You can't fault Iglesias for that decision, especially when he's been successful in Atlanta and knows the organization inside and out. But what's really interesting here is what this tells us about the Dodgers' plan moving forward. They're actively hunting for bullpen help, specifically someone who can close games or at least be a reliable late-inning option. And they're willing to spend serious money to get that guy, which shouldn't surprise anyone who's been paying attention to how the Dodgers operate. This isn't some small market team trying to bargain hunt. They went after one of the top relievers in free agency with a legitimate offer. The whole situation stems from what happened with Tanner Scott last season. The Dodgers brought him in on a nice contract, expecting him to be that dominant closer they needed, and it just didn't work out the way anyone hoped. Scott struggled, and suddenly the Dodgers found themselves in a position where they couldn't fully trust their closer in high-leverage situations. That's a nightmare scenario for any team trying to win a World Series, and it's exactly why they're being so aggressive in trying to find someone who can actually get the job done this time around. What's smart about their approach is that they're not just throwing money at the problem blindly, they're being strategic about it. $16 million for a reliever puts you right in that tier of elite bullpen arms, but it's not quite at the level of guys like Edwin Diaz, who's making over $18 million. The Dodgers are trying to find value without breaking the bank, which makes sense when you consider all the other financial commitments they have across the roster. Looking at Iglesias specifically, the guy doesn't rely purely on velocity to get outs. His fastball sits around 94 miles per hour, which is good but not elite by today's standards. What makes him effective is the movement on his pitches and his ability to locate. He's not going to overpower hitters, but he's going to make them chase and get weak contact. That's a profile that actually fits pretty well with what the Dodgers already have. They've got plenty of guys who throw gas, both in the rotation and in the bullpen. Adding someone with a different approach could have given them more versatility in how they attack opposing lineups. The age factor is worth discussing too. Iglesias is 35 years old, which means you're not getting a long-term building block here. You're getting someone who can help you win right now, but probably isn't going to be around for 5 or 6 years. The Dodgers offered him what was likely a 1-year deal, maybe 2 years maximum, and that makes sense given his age. But it also explains why they might pivot to someone younger who can be locked up for multiple seasons and provide stability at the back end of the bullpen. When you look at the broader free agent market for relievers right now, Iglesias at $16 million would have been the third highest paid reliever if we're excluding Nick Martinez, who's more of a starter at this point. You've got Robert Suarez making around $17 million and Edwin Diaz at $18.5 million at the top. Everyone else on that list is making significantly less, which gives the Dodgers options if they want to go bargain hunting. Pete Fairbanks is a name that keeps coming up, and he makes a ton of sense for the Dodgers. He's younger than Iglesias, throws harder, and has been really effective when healthy. The injury concerns are real, but if you can get him on a multi-year deal at a reasonable rate, that's the kind of move that could pay huge dividends. Ryan Helsley is another name worth watching. He had an incredible season last year and would give the Dodgers exactly the kind of dominant closer they're looking for. The Braves ultimately won the Iglesias sweepstakes by bringing him back, and you have to assume they either matched or slightly beat what the Dodgers and Blue Jays were offering, but it might have also just been a comfort thing. Iglesias knows Atlanta, he's been successful there, and sometimes that familiarity is worth taking slightly less money or the same money rather than uprooting your life to go somewhere new. For the Dodgers, this is just the opening salvo in what's going to be an aggressive offseason pursuit of bullpen help. They know they can't go into next season with the same question marks they had last year. Tanner Scott might bounce back, and plenty of pitchers have rebounded from rough seasons before. Edwin Diaz himself went through struggles and came back strong, but you can't bank on that happening. You need multiple reliable options, and right now the Dodgers don't have that certainty. The fact that they're willing to spend $16 million on a reliever shows you where their priorities are. They're not going all out on outfield help, at least not in the same way they're attacking the bullpen situation.
That money is being allocated to making sure they have late-inning arms they can trust when the games matter most. It's a smart approach, especially when you consider how many close games they lost last season because they couldn't get the final outs.
What's also interesting is the makeup of their current bullpen. They only have 3 pitchers over the age of 30 right now, which means they've got a relatively young group. Adding an older veteran like Iglesias wouldn't have been a bad thing necessarily. Sometimes you need that experience in steady hand and pressure situations, but if they end up going younger with someone like Fairbanks or another option, that's not a terrible strategy either. The Dodgers aren't desperate, but they're definitely motivated. There's a difference there. Desperate teams make panic moves and overpay for guys who don't deserve it. Motivated teams identify their needs, go after the right players, and don't flinch when they get turned down. The Dodgers offered a competitive deal to Iglesias. He chose to go back to Atlanta, and now they'll move on to the next target on their list. That's how successful organizations operate. One other thing that came out recently is that Max Muncy expects next season to be his final year with the Dodgers. It's not going to be the same kind of farewell tour that Kershaw might get eventually, but it does put the organization in a position where they need to start thinking about third base for the future. Whether that means going after someone like Munetaka Murakami in international free agency or betting on Alex Vesia to step up, that's a conversation for another day. But it's another piece of the puzzle the Dodgers are dealing with. The bottom line is this. The Dodgers identified Iglesias as a top target, made a serious offer, and didn't get him. That's not a failure. That's just how free agency works sometimes. What matters now is how they respond. And based on everything we've seen from this front office, they're not going to sit around waiting for options to come to them. They're going to be aggressive, they're going to spend money, and they're going to find the bullpen help they need to compete for another championship. Iglesias was option A, and now we're moving on to option B. That's the Dodgers way, and it's worked pretty well for them so far.